In this painting, by Italian Baroque artist Andrea Sacchi, we see Marcantonio Pasqualini, a male soprano, composer, and member of the Sistine Chapel Choir, being crowned by Apollo, the Greek god of poetry and music. But crowned with what? That leafy circle is a laurel wreath, and that's the focus of today's video. We've always crowned our heroes, but the laurel wreath, quiet, delicate, and green, has outlived most symbols of glory. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't shine, but its meaning runs deep. Hi, I'm Astrid, and though I'm not a professional historian or artist yet, I am a really big art history enthusiast. Recently, I've been reading this book, The Hidden Language of Symbols by Matthew Wilson, and I got super absorbed in this chapter on the laurel wreath. So I did a bit more digging, and, well, here we are. The laurel crown has ancient roots, associated with poetic genius, political power, and victory, but its modern symbolic weight can be traced back to one specific event. On April 8th, 1341, the poet and scholar Petrarch was crowned poet laureate in Rome with a wreath of laurel leaves. It was a symbolic revival of Roman tradition. At that ceremony, he gave a speech that would later be called the first manifesto of the Renaissance. In it, he discussed things like how the past offers inspirations to the present and the struggles of being a poet, as well as the glory and immortality it brings. And at the very end, he mentioned the bay laurel tree, its fragrance, its mythical ability to repel lightning, its sacred link to Apollo. But why was the laurel tree specifically so important to Apollo? Well, the answer, as always, lies in myth. Apollo was actually the god of many things, of healing and medicine, of archery, of music and the arts, of eloquence, of sunlight, and of knowledge. He was regarded as a great warrior and as the most beautiful of the gods. The story goes that Apollo mocked Eros, or Cupid, the god of desire, for his use of bow and arrow, since Apollo was a master at archery himself. Cupid was very insulted and, as revenge, prepared 2 arrows, one of gold and one of lead. He shot Apollo with the gold arrow, making him fall madly in love with a river nymph called Daphne. He then shot Daphne with a lead arrow, instilling in her a hatred and revulsion for Apollo. Apollo chases Daphne, a pursuit driven by obsession, and in a desperate attempt at escaping him, she prays to be transformed and becomes a laurel tree. Apollo, grief-stricken, swore to honor her forever, declares the laurel sacred, and uses his powers of eternal youth and immortality to make it evergreen. Interestingly, the association between Apollo and the laurel predates this myth's popularity. The story we know comes from Ovid's Metamorphoses, written in 8 AD, but earlier mentions do exist, like in works of Parthenius. Still, it was Ovid's poetic telling that stuck, especially during the Renaissance. And so it's through Apollo that the laurel becomes a symbol for inspiration, creativity, and immortality. In ancient Greece, laurel wreaths were awarded at the Pythian Games in Delphi, a sanctuary dedicated to Apollo, where winners of athletic events and the highest achievers in poetic and musical competitions were crowned with a laurel wreath. Delphi was also home to the Pythia, a priestess who it was believed was able to predict the future in trances induced by eating laurel leaves. Thus, the link between high achievement and the creative inspiration offered by the laurel was forged. The Romans, who regarded the Greeks as the epitome of civilization, adopted the laurel too. Originally used to celebrate military victory, it soon became a symbol of imperial power, as Julius Caesar liked them so much that he wanted to wear them at all official events.
Cool!
Augustus followed suit by using laurels as a personal emblem. Imperial Roman busts show how laurel wreaths would go on to be worn by many emperors and members of the elite, but also eventually by children, artists, and priests. As Wilson writes, its original designation as a symbol of military victory eased into an all-encompassing signifier of auspiciousness, and it became widely used for various Roman rituals and ceremonies, and still to this day it's being used. The term laureate, from the Latin laureatus, meaning crowned with laurel, survives today in the context of award nominations, such as the Nobel laureates in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace. The laurel wreath appears widely in art, from paintings and monuments to architecture and coins, and it can symbolize immortality or victory or relate to the arts. So when we return to Andrea Sacchi's painting, with Apollo crowning Pasqualini, we can see it for what it is. Not just a pretty composition, but a reference to the mythic lineage of poetic greatness. A nod to Apollo, to Daphne, and to the eternal idea of being chosen by the muse. And that's the story, or at least one version, of the Laurel Wreath. This was, I guess, my first educational, informative video here on YouTube, and I would really like to make more, so if you have any feedback, editing, graphics, research, setup, I'd honestly love to hear it. This topic really fascinated me, and so I think I might do more videos on symbols from the hidden language of symbols, or just other random topics that I need some excuse to research more. So let me know if you'd like to see that. Also, if you want a deeper dive into Bernini's sculpture on Apollo and Daphne, I would highly recommend the video by Great Art Explained. It's really so great. I'll link it below for you. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye. Oh, you're still here? Well, in that case, let me use this opportunity to show off the crown I made. I cut out these leaves from paper and stuck it onto this piece of cardboard. I just taped it on. Actually pretty proud of it. I think it makes for a great prop. Like, how boring would this video be if I didn't have this on? I don't think you'd be here, frankly. Bed sheets and paper. That's how I'm spending my Friday afternoon. Okay, bye.